Hello and welcome to the PS Lifestyle Wellness podcast, Wellness in Your World. As a reminder, PS Lifestyle Wellness is an exciting and visionary project breaking new ground within the wellness industry, and it combines our resource-efficient wellness club with our online wellness programs. So whilst our design and build move forward, we bring you the PS 5 areas of wellness online. Conversations about real wellness, no fads, no weird trends. We clear the fog that can make wellness seem so confusing and intimidating. So if you're into facts, credibility, expertise and a bit of humour, stay tuned for some wellness in your world. Hi, Ms. Mackenzie.
Very good.
She forgot who she was. And I'm Angela Griffin, and welcome to our Wellness in Your World podcast. Together, we are the co-founders of PS Lifestyle Wellness. Today, we are delighted to welcome Marc Innes.
You should know how to pronounce it up there. What's his name?
How do you think you pronounce it? Sorry, Marc.
Yeah.
And Marc is the principal and owner of the School of Natural Therapies. We did say this might go downhill quite quickly. So Marc is based in London, but also online. And the School of Natural Therapies is a centre of study for massage, reflexology, and sport and remedial massage. Marc is an educator, researcher, and developer of massage, wellness, and holistic programs, and he and his team have been teaching massage and holistic therapies for over 30 years. Marc has an infectious passion for the industry and educating people to deliver their own love for the fascinating and increasingly popular world of massage and holistic therapies. Marc has a personality of focus and compassion. These traits have served him well, and as a former paramedic for 23 years with London Ambulance Service, as well as having spent 4 years with the Made for Life Foundation, researching, developing and gaining accreditation and endorsement for cancer touch therapy training. And to round it all off, Marc is renowned in the industry, not only as one of the best tutors and practitioners in his field, but also an all-round nice guy. Marc, did you last part of that yourself?
I was going to say, you're well researched there, aren't you? I'm impressed.
That was she usually does all that. So was it all accurate, or do you have to call?
Yeah, I'll just clarify. So the School of Natural Therapies is 30 years old. I took over the school as principal and took over the business back in 2010. So so I've only been at the helm, as it were, for 11 years now. But since that time, it's grown. It's grown really big now. I would say before it was probably more of a cottage industry, what we call a cottage industry. So just a few courses a year, and it was heavily focused on, post qualification. It was focused on things like facials and beauty and stuff like that. So at that time, when I took over, it kind of wasn't my industry really. I was thinking, let's go more down the, let's develop into sports and remedial massage, which we did. But then I found myself drawn into another world, as you know, about.
Yeah, indeed. So tell us how you got to where you are. We don't need the whole life story, just just your career.
I'm quite good at keeping it succinct. So, do you want me to start off? Do you want me to start off when I left the NHS and what?
Tell us about what you did in the NHS, because I think that probably formed the foundation of your next steps, really, did it not?
Yeah, so I was a wee young thing of I joined as a cadet actually, London Ambulance Service, almost a school leaver really. And in those days, you would start off your career very much driving around in. You've probably seen them, the coaches and the clear windowed ambulances. So it's usually, we used to call it. I don't think this is being derogatory, but we used to call it the Jerry Ferry. So all the geriatrics we would pick up, and there was mostly older folk who were going into outpatients or. For their appointment, and we'd pick them all up, and sometimes we'd have to carry them on a chair on the tail lift and take them off to outpatients and wrap them in a blanket and then pick them up and take them home. And then
Marc, very important job.
Well, absolutely, it's bread and butter work, and it's as important, and it's where you learn how to deal with the public, how to talk to people from all walks of life. I mean, I would describe myself as when I was at school, I was quite shy, actually, quite sensitive, quite shy, wasn't very, I couldn't have done anything like this, I never would have thought I'd be doing this. But, you gain confidence, because especially when you become a paramedic, because, people's first reaction is, thank God you're here, we're so glad to see you and please help us, And I think that develops, you have to be confident in what you're doing. And I think I always say it made me the person that I am now, really. So I worked my way through and worked in the busy streets of central London, became a paramedic, and specialized in cardiac care, coronary cardiac care, that sort of thing. And then, I don't know if you remember, but we had back in, certainly in England, I think it was countrywide, UK-wide actually, we had an ambulance dispute back in the very late 80s, 89, 90. And yeah, we were fighting to be brought into line with, the fire. You were tiny, weren't you? We were wanting to be brought into line, with firemen and police. Because back then we came under the Home Office. We weren't even part of the NHS. So it was all about that, really. And I don't know, it changed things, and it was a very difficult time. And afterwards, I don't know, it just didn't have the same kind of feeling for me. So I ended up going to work in the control room, the 999 call center at Waterloo, and I became a radio operator. So I would be dolling out all the calls to all the ambulances. And then I worked my way up to post of superintendent. So I was sort of in charge of all the the call center, really. So, what I always say about that type of work is it makes you the person you are. It was great. I loved it. I wouldn't have swapped it for the world. But it has a shelf life, because what I could see coming was, if I don't get out now, the stress, the shift work, it turns your body upside down. And I thought, if I don't correct that soon, there's going to come a time where I'm not going to be very well. So I thought, I'm going to get out while I can. And so I left in 2007. But prior to that, I had got interested in doing, interested in energy, I guess you'd call it. So my grandfather I would describe him as a healer. He was a clairvoyant. He used to read palms, and he was a fascinating man. And I used to get migraines a lot as a child. So when I used to go, if I wasn't well, I'd go and visit them, and he'd just put his hands on. And Maddox used to just go. I mean, he was just such a great healer. And there was a time when, just before I left the NHS, where I started getting sort of, sensations in my hands. And I remember being at a conference with a lady, and she said, we were just chatting about it. She said, I could really feel that coming from your hands. And she said, I've got a bad knee. Why don't you put your hands on my knee? So I did. It must have looked a bit dodgy in the bar. And then about 10 minutes later, she said, it actually feels better, and she said, you should do something. So I wasn't really sure what it was, to be honest. And then by chance or not, I met a lady at a train station, got chatting to her. She was a reiki master, and we got chatting, and we swapped numbers, and then I became attuned to reiki. I think that was in 2004, 2005. And that opened up a whole new world for me, because suddenly I think that's what also drove me away from the NHS. I was like, I need to explore this world, because everything made sense to me. Everything was about energy and vibration. I was heading in that direction, and I became we call it a Reiki master, so someone who's attuned to level 3. What I used to notice was people would come and have a treatment from me, and it would always make them feel better. They'd always go out better than they came in, because I was working from home. But it always came back, the pain, whatever was wrong with them always came back. And I used to think, what's driving their illness? What's behind this? And that became a sort of a quest for me, if you like. And that's when I started to explore the mind-body connection. And I started to, body work. So I went to a massage school and learned how to do a massage, Indian head massage. I was already doing the Reiki, and it all kind of fell into place. I started to teach for another company, and then the opportunity came up to buy the School of Natural Therapies for a very good price. And I thought, just something, that gut sensation, I need to do this. And the rest is history, really. But the bizarre thing was, I was living on I'm back living on the south coast of England now. But at that time, I decided to move to Cornwall, just for an adventure, really. And we rented out the flat, and we decided to up sticks and go down there, just for a couple of years and see what it was like. And at that time, the school came available, so I ended up doing this. Looking back now, I mean, living in Cornwall, but the school was in London, so every weekend I'd make the pilgrimage up to London and be part of that, then drive back to Cornwall. And I did that for about 4 or 5 years, just spending, you know, it was just crazy, 300 miles each way. But I just did it because, you know, I love running the school. I also liked living in Cornwall. And then there came a point where I thought, nah, I don't want to do this anymore. It's too much. It's telling on me. So I sort of drew back from the school a little bit, and we had two wonderful tutors, one that worked with sports massage and one that worked with what we call the holistic side. And I said to them, I'm going to step back a bit. I'm going to put you out the front. You can run the show. I need to do other things. So we did that, and so I'm still head of the School of Natural Therapies. I'm still principal. I'm there as the wise old owl if advice and guidance is needed, you know, and I help to still run the school and develop it. But I do other things. I do lots of things. So it was when I was in Cornwall that I think I probably met living in Cornwall. I met you ladies at Sparfest, wasn't it?
So that was 2006.
Was it about 4 or 5? No. Was that?
Yeah, 2016, because I was working for Voya, so I don't think you were there the first year, Lindsay, no. So, and I was still working for Voya. It was before we started.
Yes.
So yeah, it would have been 2016.
Because I think you were there one year, and then the following year, Lindsay, you were there, weren't you? You came the following year, maybe? I can't remember now. But
yeah, I don't know. They kind of merge into one. For those of you that don't know, Spafest is it's an industry event that. Well, actually, you might want to explain why you were there, Marc, because you put out a huge chunk of work that you've done between that and that. So
so I met a lady called Amandawynwood while I was living in Cornwall, and we hooked up together. We had a very similar philosophy on one particular area of massage, as you know, and that was, you know, working with people who were going through or recovering from cancer. And it had long been a frustration of mine, you know, with my medical head on. I could never understand why we couldn't open our doors to people, you know, with care and with the right knowledge. And I knew that, you know, I knew that spas were turning people away at that time. Beauty salons were very, very reluctant, very reticent in treating everybody. And, you know, it was like the doors were being closed on all these people. And it was a frustration of mine because I couldn't see any clinical or medical reason why we shouldn't do that. And Amanda had the same kind of, you know, thoughts going on in her head as well. Now she is the owner of an organic skincare company, and there wasn't a lot at that time going on in Cornwall for sort of, you know, care for people who were recovering from cancer. There were various centres, but not much really going on. And anybody that's been through cancer will tell you it's the time when you're discharged, when the hospital say, okay, we think you're okay now. You're never really given the total sort of all clear. It's always remission. And I think it's that time that people really need contact and need touch. And that just wasn't available at the time. So because we share the same philosophy, I guess that drew us together. And I did a bit of work for Amanda, working in the laboratory there, making some of the organic skincare products. That was only going to be for a few months. That turned into a couple of years. And then it was that point when Amanda and I said, let's get this show on the road. Let's do this. So we did. So I went off and did my research, drew on all my medical knowledge, I suppose. I'd had experience of working, you know, with cancer patients when I was, you know, back on the Jerry Ferry days, because a lot of those people had to go to have their radiotherapy or their chemotherapy. So it means us picking them up. And, you know, I think back in those days, things like radiotherapy were quite brutal. People were quite poorly afterwards. Not that they're not poorly sometimes now, but then I think it was different. And so, we'd have to really look after them, you know, get them home as quickly as possible. So, you know, having dealt with that side of things and with my medical knowledge and my massage head on, it just made sense. And it seemed unethical not to do this. So we drew the program together. We got it accredited and endorsed by CIBTAC as well, which took some work. And then we went on a UK-wide journey, really. Spas were very keen to engage our services, and I loved it. I loved traveling around. We had such good times, met some amazing people. I was always very impressed with the Scottish contingency. I always thought the quality of therapists up there were really, really good.
People do
I've
say
said that
that.
to you before, haven't I?
Yeah, people do say that. It's really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
I've never quite got to the bottom of why that is. Is there a reason for that, Marc, that's really obvious to you, having worked all over?
I don't know, one thing I've observed, I've got to be careful not to offend anyone. I won't name areas or places, but, I've worked in certain regions where the work ethic seems different. And I don't know, I can't put my finger on it. I think across the UK, there are different regions where sometimes the work ethic is good in general. And that is a generalization, of course. That's not to say that there aren't good therapists everywhere. But yeah, it was just interesting. I always found there were certain regions that I worked in where everyone was more willing to engage.
Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I just give some context just for people who maybe are listening to this and are sort of sitting here thinking, why were spas and salons not treating people with cancer? Because it's always been a myth in our industry that massage actually spreads cancer around the body. So there were two things really that spas and salons have dealt with over the years. There was this myth that I don't know where it came from, but it was just always around. And then there was this something myth that your insurance wouldn't cover you if you treat somebody with cancer and you get worse in inverted commas. And both of those things aren't correct.
Yeah, no, that's not.
Unfortunately, they managed to take a really firm grip. I mean, even when I did my training in 2016, I was told that I wasn't allowed to treat cancer, and I knew that was wrong because of the work that I've done from the other side of the industry. So, again, not to it's nobody's fault necessarily, but it's unfortunately just one of those things. And then it took one really high profile case of somebody taking a very high profile chain of spas to court essentially and saying, you've turned me away under the Disability Act, this is actually illegal. So it was unfortunate that happened, but at the same time it was probably quite good because it started this whole conversation around what's going on here. And I think that was around about the same time that you and Amanda were working on.
Yes. Well, I mean, there was one case that made the Daily Mail, and it was a lady who went into, I think we probably talked about this, but she went into a salon in London, I think, for maybe a facial. I can't remember the details. But the salon owner had literally said to her, we wouldn't touch you with a barge pole.
Oh,
and this was a lady recovering from breast cancer, I mean, not the best start. And this lady, I think, happened to be a lawyer or something. And that's how it kind of, made the Daily Mail. And I remember that article because I remember a consultant oncologist becoming part of that article. And I think he even made the TV and he was saying, where's this coming from? It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And I was thinking, thank you at last. It's been.
This is it. It galvanized everything, and
But what I noticed was when I used to talk, because I'd always open up the course by saying, what are your beliefs about massage and cancer, and what were you told when you were studying? And I firmly believe that the fear gets instilled or was instilled into people from training school days. And as you said, it's Pam, it's not anyone's fault. I think the tutors didn't know themselves, or they were told, they were given a reason. And then you just pass that information on, and then people start to, flower it all up and fabricate it all.
Those arms and legs.
People saying, it stops the chemotherapy from working, and there's something, what's this born of, So I think the biggest job, in the first half an hour, you have to quash all these myths, and you have to explain why that's not the case. Now, that's not to say that you don't have to be careful. And I always say it's not even about the massage. It's not even about the cancer. It's about the treatment they're having, because that's where we need to focus our attention. Therapy, the surgery, the drugs, that have side effects that we need to know about, so that we can tailor or target the treatment or adapt it in some way for those people. I always said this, I used to say to them, from here on in, everybody will be able to come into your treatment room and lie on a couch and have something, and not just a manicure, pedicure. Even that was crazy, really, because that was the go-to treatment, wasn't it? It was, can't have a massage, but we can do your nails, pedicure, manicure. And that in itself, if you don't approach it in the right way, if you're not aware, can be dangerous and could cause, for one thing, lymphedema. So again, I go into detail about that when I'm training, and that surprises a lot of people. So yeah, I mean, care needs, it's all about knowledge. It's about empowering people to know about cancer, look at it logically and go, this can't happen. We can't be, we can't be spreading cancer. Then I think once a therapist feels empowered, then they're able to have that conversation with their clients and say, look, you've put here on the consultation form that you're recovering from or having treatment. This is the way I think we should do the treatment. It doesn't always work because sometimes people book in for things like deep tissue, or they want the treatment they've booked in for. But I always say, at least now you can have that conversation with them and you can explain why you're not doing that, or why you're giving them this treatment or offering this instead. Because I think the worst thing you can say to clients, bear me out if I'm wrong, is, oh, it's policy, or we're not insured. I mean, that must really, get to some people, and that's why I think people get frustrated, and that's when all the kind of arguments blow up and the dissatisfied customers and things like that. So I always think, put someone in a place of where they can stand in their power, know what they're talking about, have that conversation. Then I think people understand why you're really looking after their best interests.
Well, at the end of the day, we're the wellness industry, and if we can't be inclusive, then who's going to be? And I mean, I've done some of the cancer training. In fact, we both have different. Wendy and I have both done slightly different courses, but really, it's just about adaptation. It's about asking the right questions. And I've said this before: it's the power of touch is such an incredible thing that it can be the slightest touch, And there can be people who've gone through such evasive treatment where they've gone through all kinds of things, and actually just that very gentle touch from somebody,
Well, I always used to say this,
and physical health.
Absolutely. I mean, you think about when a lot of people say that, when you're diagnosed with cancer, when you come under their wing, and some people say that they feel very disempowered. It's like they take over your life. And that, not in a way that, in a helpful way, we suggest, we want you to come in, we want you to have this surgery, then we want you to have this treatment. And people feel a little bit disempowered because they literally put themselves in the hands of the medical professionals who are looking after them. So they kind of lost their identity in a way. And then at the other end of that, if they're fortunate enough to to be discharged, that's why I think they feel a little bit kind of vulnerable. And that's when I think contact and gentle, nurturing contact, as opposed to that very clinical touch that they've had. Examination, let's listen to your chest and lay down there and put your arm out there. And then suddenly they come into this environment, don't they, where, there's music playing and it's very gentle, and people literally reconnect with themselves. And that surprised me, actually, because I think with my naivety at the start of all this, I thought it was just about, give them this knowledge, get them in, give them a treatment, that will make them feel good. But actually, as we started to meet the clients that came in and volunteered for us, I think what I learned was the healing starts when they just turn up and come into the treatment room. That's before they've even undressed and laid on the couch, because it's being able to open up to somebody that understands what they've been through, able to talk about it. I mean, you'd meet sometimes people who would have had, let's say, reconstruction, breast reconstruction, or maybe a mastectomy, and hadn't even shown their husband, or they hadn't even seen them without clothes, and then suddenly here they are trusting you as a therapist to sort of say, well, okay, I'm going to take this off now, and or I'm going to take my wig off now, and that sort of thing. And I think that's where the healing starts, there, before you've even laid your hands on them. And that I think that aspect surprised me, actually. And I had that it starts before that, and it is that thing about reconnecting with yourself. And I mean, that doesn't just apply to people who've gone through cancer. I mean, in the current environment, that we found ourselves in for the last year, I mean, think of the loss of contact and the isolation that people have felt.
Totally. I went back into treatment in December last year, and we were back to back with body massage. Well, that's because that's all we can do in Scotland at the moment. But, the number of people that were saying, I've never been for massage, but I just wanted I just wanted something different. I wanted to just relax. I wanted that connection, and it was fantastic. I absolutely loved it because, you know, you could just sense with some people that, you know, if they, especially if they've been self-isolating or were living alone or whatever, hadn't had much contact with people, that just being around other people and having that kind of, you know, experience, it completely changed. Like you're talking about energy, Marc, you could feel they had not much when they came in, and then when they left, they were like different people. And I always say, as therapists, and I use the term we collectively, have got such, I think we're in such an amazing position that we can really change the way that somebody feels. That
I actually believe, I firmly believe that it's, you know, once we can all open up properly, that it's actually, you know, if there's anything to glean out of this situation, it's been good for our industry, and it will continue to be good for our industry, I think. Especially, you know, people are not traveling now, and it's that thing, isn't it? You know, if you can't travel abroad, or you can't do what you want to do, you know, maybe people will just be treating themselves to a bit more nurture, you know, a facial, a massage. I remember back in 2008, remember we had that kind of financial crash in 2008. And I was teaching at the time for another company, and I remember the owner of the company being worried, you know, thinking, oh, people are not going to be booking on hot stone massage courses. Or actually, we were busier because people were giving up all the expensive things and just having these little treats where they could. And I think the same is going to happen now, actually. And I think, you know, and on both sides of the industry, you know, the what I call the holistic side, or the beauty side, you know, the sort of the gentle touch and all the, you know, the facials, the hot stones and all that lovely stuff. But also on the, and Lindsay, I know that, you know, you're in the sports massage world, as am I. And I think, you know, that also is going to bring its own set of issues that need to be resolved. So, you know, by the fact that I'm sitting here now, and I've been sitting here for a long time working, you know, things like the psoas muscle, everything becomes imbalanced, you know, neck, shoulder issues. People just want, you know, and more people working from home now. I mean, I read recently that banks are reducing their offices. I don't know if it's just in England or UK, by 40%. So that's because 40% of their staff are now working from home. And you can bet your bottom dollar they're not sitting there with their screen at the right height, the right support in their back. They're not getting up every now and again and walking around. You know, they're just stuck there in this position, whatever, you know, phone here. I mean, that's going to be very telling. And I think as the, you know, as the School of Natural Therapies, we just literally had to put people on a waiting list, because everybody now is very keen to work in the industry. So I think we're recruiting a lot more people as well. I don't know how it works on the beauty side of things, but certainly a lot more people now. And interestingly enough, you know, down here in England, if you're level 5, you know, your class is clinical. So, you know, a lot of people, level 5 therapists, work, you know, with in chiropractic clinics or with physios, and they've kept running throughout. So people are now thinking, okay, so if I become level 5, I can keep going even in lockdown scenarios, you know. So we've seen a lot of people wanting to upskill as well.
That's great. That's brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, I hope they're doing it for the right reasons, yeah, because they want to do it. I mean, it's all very well saying, well, it keeps me going, but, you know, do you really want to work in that field? Or, you know, so I hope they're doing it for the right reasons. But it's good from the school's point of view, absolutely. And one of the things we have done as well, and we tried it out this year, something that I observed when I was, you know, on the road, as I call it, was there are a lot of really good spa therapists who wanted to do something more, let's say, remedial. Not all of them, but some of them. And that meant officially, you know, technically, you know, going on and doing a sports massage diploma course. Now, sometimes it's cost prohibitive. Sometimes it's, you know, can't have the time off to do the course. And I used to watch some people massaging, and I used to think they've got really good hand skills, or they've got, you know, they are really good. And the way they use their body is really impressive, considering they haven't been trained in the sports world. And I just chatted to Joseph, who's our sports massage director, and I said, I think we could do something with these people. So what we came up with is what we call a sports massage conversion course. So so what we've done is we recognize that spa therapists have the right background. They've studied anatomy, physiology, they've got massage hand skills, and some of them have been in the industry for a long time. So why wouldn't we want to consider that experience and what they've gained, and rather than having to take them back to the very beginning? So we came up with a sports massage conversion course, and I won't name her, but somebody I worked with at one of her spas, she came along. She came down from the Lake District, and she did the conversion course, and she's passed. She's got a level 3 sports massage now. So it literally takes your prior knowledge, recognizes it, but we just upskill you a little bit with the right kind of hand skills. Obviously we look at your posture and your biomechanics, the way you use your body, because people do get into bad habits, and I'm sure you know. There's a little bit more upskilling on the anatomy physiology side, particularly with muscles and soft tissue. But yeah, it's been really successful. The uptake's been really good. And so that means, a spa therapist, if you want to call, or even a beauty therapist, can use their knowledge and experience and convert themselves over. So that kind of broadens your spectrum of clients, doesn't it?
Are you doing that? And am I right to say that you're doing that, offering that in Edinburgh as well, Marc?
Well, we tried it out in London just to see whether it worked, and it did. It did work. And some of those people have now gone on to do the level 5 program as well with us. And we always said, if it worked, if it was successful, and if we got good results, we would extend that out. So yeah, in answer to your question, I think building on that success, we're ready to go countrywide with that. So Edinburgh certainly is on the list. And what we would do, it would be like a 4-day intensive. So we do a lot of the theory via Zoom. It does mean that, if you studied anatomy and physiology and you've had your qualification for a few years, you need to go back and revise your anatomy a little bit. And that's and that's what we call self-directed learning. So yeah, you need to get your textbooks out, and you need to, because there is a 25-question multiple choice paper covering each system of the body. That's not bad, actually. 25 questions for theory is not bad at all. So there'll be 2 questions on each system of the body. There's a couple of assignments to do, and then we would probably come up and do sort of 4 days intensive, and do a mock day on the last day, and then yeah, go forward for exam. Go forward for exam and get your qualification.
So watch this space, people, if you're based in Edinburgh and you want to...
Well, yeah, and if anyone's got the space up there and wants to invite us up, I mean, the beauty of doing what we're doing now and doing all the theory by Zoom is it doesn't really matter where you are, does it? We can do all this, and then just come up for the practical. So I think we'll probably look at Edinburgh, and then probably just come down a bit to Manchester.
Brilliant.
And see how that goes. So I have been in talks with somebody in Edinburgh, actually, who I think has the right space for us. It's just a case of when I can come into Scotland and go and view it, really.
Passport. Go down that road. I'm looking at Lindsay's notes, and she's got some really amazingly long words that I can't pronounce. And I love hearing you guys talk about, the more kind of intense clinical stuff. So what is it you've got written down, Lindsay?
Well, it's going back to something that you originally said about that mind-body touch connection, because neuroscientists have identified how stress, depression, and other mental states can actually alter organ function, and shows that there's a real anatomical basis for kind of psychosomatic illnesses.
I'm so glad you asked me that question, Lindsay. I'm thrilled that you asked me that question. This is where I really kind of open up. So we call the biopsychosocial element of, yeah. Have you heard that expression before, biopsychosocial?
I haven't.
Yeah. So, I mean, undoubtedly, the mind-body connection is there, and that's something I realised way back when. I studied a different way of looking at things. So I will stress it's not a replacement for conventional healthcare, and I'm not saying you shouldn't, consult your GP and all things, but there are other ways of looking at symptoms as well. And we know that, oh God, we can maybe do this as another podcast, because I could probably take up an hour. But we look at the way, in a way, we kind of go back to embryology, and we look at the way we as a species have evolved. And it gets interesting, because then we start to look at the different tissue types in our body and how they developed over thousands of years. Because I don't know if you know, we started off as just a group of cells, as what we call a blastocyst, and we were just a group of cells in a ring shape. And literally, if I can say this without kind of people going, ugh, but like the anus and the pharynx were almost connected. So it came in, it went in a circle, it came out again, and at some stage in evolution that broke open, and people are going to be seeing this, aren't they? Let me show you. I can show you if you can see this.
Show us. I'm slightly concerned now.
But no, I'm not going to show you. But this is a very interesting diagram, actually. Let me just come close. You can see that kind of. Can you see that ring formation here? That ring formation. That's when the the pharynx and the anus were connected, and then you see in time that broke open. And it almost mirrors what you see is how a baby forms.
Wow.
Yeah, and just to carry that a bit further, I mean, here you see the same thing, but you see, look, that's actually, this one here is actually a baby in the embryo, and you can see that almost that ring developing. Now, why is all that relevant? Well, because we started out as very few cells, we became multicellular beings, and then through evolution, we started to grow so that was all controlled by what we call the primal brain, or the lizard brain, you know, the brain stem, what we now call the brain stem, and a part of the cerebellum at the back of the head. And that's all we were, very simple cellular beings. And then as we started to move around, we developed a musculoskeletal system. So we developed bones and muscles, and that became part of the medulla part of the brain, the middle of the brain, that evolved with that kind of. So when we look at the medulla today, we know that part of the brain controls our musculoskeletal system. And then as we started moving around, we started to form in groups, because, you know, why would you not be in a group? It's easier, it makes life easier. So we started to form in groups, and that's when the outer layer of the brain, the cerebral cortex, started to develop. And again, you know, things like the skin is controlled by the outer cortex of the brain. And this was all researched by a doctor. And again, I won't go into too much detail now, but if you ever wanted to do a podcast about it, so I could tell you so much more about it. But what it means is, through evolution, each area of the brain has now controls certain organs and tissues in our body. And so when we look at, and so with that comes conflicts as well. So if you, for example, the primal part of our being is about survival, because, you know, that diagram I showed you, it's about taking in food, processing food, expelling it. That's how we survive as a species. So all our organs of survival are still, to this day, controlled by the old part of the brain stem. So our lungs, for example, are controlled by, you know, because it's about taking in air, processing it, and breathing out. So, you know, when we have a conflict that affects our survival, it affects that part of the brain emotionally, causes a conflict that then has a knock-on effect to the physical body. So things like liver issues, you know, starvation issues, and things like that. When we start to feel that we're not worthy, we're not good enough, or we can't do something, that very much comes under the control of the cerebral medulla, and we see musculoskeletal issues. So a lot of so where I'm going with this is, a lot of people with musculoskeletal issues have conflicts around not being good enough, not being strong enough to do something. You see it a lot in the sports world, actually. You see that kind of thing going on. I'm not a good enough footballer, or I'm not very good at this. And then you see problems develop, particularly in the knees, oddly enough, which is often about kicking the ball or moving or running, you know, about doing something. So that's where you start to see the mind-body connection. There's a conflict. I'm not good enough. I'm not strong enough, I'm not agile enough, and the physical effects that can have on the body. Now, we'll say this is not just mumbo jumbo. This was researched, and it is provable, scientifically provable. And again, I can go into much more detail on this, by a Dr. Hammer, who sadly is no longer with us, but I can tell you more about his work. And so, going back to what we're saying about that mind body, or that biopsychosocial, I think in the massage industry, yeah, it's very relevant. And of course, you know, thinking about when we started to form in groups, you know, we were used to being in groups and being touched and being seen and being heard. And then you think about what's happened in this last year, suddenly we're cut off from the tribe. we became used to living in those groups. We're now cut off, or have been cut off from those people. We've lost that touch and that company and that contact, and that's when I think it will have knock-on, if it hasn't already, had knock-on effects in the physical body.
So are you guys predicting you're just going to see so much more of this coming through because of what we've been through in the last 12 months?
It goes back to that survival instinct. So your stress level, your fight or flight will be on constant high alert. And not least because of what has been going on and there being a virus that is deadly. But you've also got the issues like Marc said, you're working from home, you're not in an environment that's conducive to that. You're maybe a business owner who doesn't have staff, or you've had to furlough your staff and you're taking on more work yourself, so your stress levels will increase. So you've got your survival mode is on all of the time.
Well, absolutely. Well, I mean, survival mode kicks in, doesn't it, when there's a virus, because you think, is this, am I going to die? Is this going to kill me? And so you go into survival mode, and the fear that surrounds it all. The loss, I predict actually there will be, because sometimes so on this model I'm talking about, the fascinating thing is sometimes you get symptoms in the restoration or the healing phase. So in other words, when the conflict is resolved, sometimes symptoms can kick in to repair tissue in the body, to repair the damage that was done during the conflict. And again, I'd have to go into much more detail about this, but I predict that we'll see eczemas and psoriasis a lot more.
I've already seen it. The number of clients that contact me and say, their skin is all of a sudden sensitive, it's red, it's dry, what's going on?
Loss of contact.
Yeah, and stress as well, and it can, stress in the body, we know, is inflammation, and it has to go somewhere, and very often it will come out again, and it can take up to 6 months for that to happen. And at the turn of the year there, I was getting a lot of clients contacting me saying exactly that. Why all of a sudden has my skin done this? I'm like, well, think back to what's happened in the last 6 to 9 months.
Absolutely, it's all there. It's all there, and and so you've got the physical stuff, like what we were talking about, the sort of where we are now, sitting, not moving around enough. So that's going to have a knock on. But it is also about contact and that biopsychosocial connection. And one of the questions I thought you were going to ask me was about, what do I think of, what's my definition of wellness?
Well, we'll ask you that. Well, go ahead.
And I think, for some, it's a loaded question, that one, isn't it? Because it means different things to different people. You ask one person, what does wellness mean? And it's, we're not being ill or not having any pains in my body or whatever. Well, to some people that is wellness, but just because you don't have any symptoms or any pain, does that mean you're well? Because are you well up here? Can you be on the road to, or on a pathway heading up to symptoms, because maybe things aren't good in your mind, in your head, or maybe the conflict's going on. So wellness, I think, is not just absence of symptoms. I think wellness is very much like, how do I say this? What's the first thing you think about when you wake up in the morning, or what's the thing that keeps you awake at night? What bothers you? What worries you? Because you can bet your bottom dollar. Or what do you spend a lot of time thinking about that you haven't normally thought about? And I think those are the things, if you spend an inordinate amount of time thinking about something, to the point where it's not as much an obsession, but I spend a lot of time thinking about what's the last thing I think about at night, where it keeps me awake, or when I wake up in the morning, my mind goes straight there. You can bet your bottom dollar that's a conflict that needs to be resolved. Now that's...
How do we do that, Marc?
well, there you go. There's the $1 million question, isn't it? That's yeah, absolutely. So wellness really, is it just about not having pain or symptoms, or is it about waking up in the morning and looking forward to getting up, going to bed at night, sleeping soundly? It's more than just physical, isn't it? You know what I mean? So I could talk about it all day, really. But I think that's kind of, I think it's interesting times where we've been and where we're going. And I think we're going to start to see, as we come out of lockdowns and start to resume things in some normal way, I think you'll start to see healing going on, and you might see things like eczemas and stuff going on. You're looking at your paper there, Lindsay. You've got another question.
I think you've answered them all, Marc.
Have I?
in some way,
Which is nice. But well, thank you for joining us. And the point of doing these podcasts is we want people to understand that wellness is our industry is so multifaceted, and it's so interesting to hear people's different journeys through that industry, taking them. So you come from traditional medicine, if you like, and you've to the dark side. But then the two, there's very much a place for the two. And actually, there is a huge argument that the two should work together.
Absolutely. And I think what you're doing is addressing that. I know where you're heading with your project and your plans, and things are moving forward. And I think the great thing about what you ladies are doing is you're addressing those very issues. So I think you're going down the right pathway.
Thank you.
Is
there anything else you'd like to tell us, Marc, or should we schedule you in for another podcast?
Well, listen, I'm always here. I'm not going too far at the moment. I'm working on some new stuff in the oncology world, which will be exciting. Right. So I can tell you a bit more about that maybe next time. But if you want to do another one at any stage, and we can delve into any of what I've talked about today in more detail, very happy to do that. Because the more people you engage, the more people ask questions, and the more we can put people on a pathway if that helps them in some way. So
over to you, Lindsay.
So thank you very much, Marc. And as always, everyone, please like, share and comment, and contact us for more information on creating bespoke online wellness programs for you and your employees to ensure that they remain motivated and engaged in your business. You can find us at pswellnessedinburgh.com. So thanks for listening, and join us next time for some more wellness in your world.
Bye, everyone. Thanks very much for inviting me. Take care.
You're very welcome.